Hey there, this is Ross Izzard, and this is the Backcountry Fly Fishing Podcast, where we talk about fly fishing in more interesting places. Welcome back for Season 4. I hope you have all enjoyed the last month-ish, a little bit more off, at least from the podcast. I hope you didn't take it off from fishing. Hope that you have been out there staying safe as runoff kind of works its way through the system and runs its course. Hope you've been catching a bunch of fish. Hope you've been starting to plan where you're going to go once the sort of true backcountry season opens up here in just a little bit. And I hope you're ready to jump back into a whole lot more discussion here in Season 4. So, as promised, Season 4 is going to look just a little bit different than the first few seasons did. The first 3 seasons were all about there was some stuff in there. There was some storytelling and things like that. But there were a lot of tactics, a lot of gear, a lot of how I fish, a lot of seasonal stuff, a lot of level setting. And we didn't cover everything. We still have, years probably of stuff to talk about before we cover all of that. So don't worry, there is plenty more of that coming, both this season and in the seasons to come. And I've loved the questions and the feedback that I've gotten from you all. I've gotten everything from how do I carry a sidearm when I'm wet wading to which wading boots should I use to tie onto my pack when I hike, to a whole bunch of other stuff, including one that turned out to be a interesting conversation about whether or not snowshoes are necessary. So I've really enjoyed all that. We have a lot more of that functional stuff to talk about. But I think that probably most of you can tell that this podcast is a little bit different. Right. So I have a lot of respect for the other podcasts out there. I think they do great work. I think they do a really good job of laying out general information, of teaching people pieces of how to fish. I'm not sure you can totally teach somebody how to fish on a podcast, but I admire what they do. I really do. But this podcast is a little bit different because backcountry fly fishing is a little bit different. It's the same activity, right? Fly fishing is fly fishing, trout are trout. But it's not exactly the same. We are not fishing in the standard places. We're not just going down the road and pulling off and jumping in the river 20 feet from the truck. Yeah, we might do that sometimes. I mean, I do that sometimes on a Sunday afternoon, or if I don't want to go too far, or weather doesn't let me go too far, whatever it might be. But that's not really the main thing. And even though I enjoy doing that, I do enjoy fishing, I always find that those outings are, they're shorter. And even though I have fun with them, and I'll probably keep doing them until I die, they don't exactly give me the same thing that I get from being off in the wilderness, exploring, being by myself, being in wild places, being on wild water. It's just a different thing. And as I've said before, what's interesting about this fly fishing thing is that we can go catch a 10 or 12 or 15-inch brown trout or brook trout or rainbow or even, maybe not cutthroat because they tend to live in wild places. But, we can go catch these fish almost anywhere. You don't have to hike 5 or 10 miles into the backcountry to catch a beautiful trout. You don't have to drop down into a canyon and run through some rough blue line to catch an 8-inch brook trout, right? You don't have to do those things. And so the reason that I do this backcountry fly fishing thing, and I think probably the reason that a lot of you do it too, isn't really just the fish. I mean, yeah, we want to catch fish. Yes, we want to be good anglers. Yes, there's so much to learn and to teach and to talk about when it comes to fishing. And we're certainly going to do that. But I've appreciated the feedback that I've gotten from some of you that we need to stay true to what makes this different. And I think what makes it different is that it isn't really about the fish. It's about the places. But even that's kind of too simple. It's not really just about the places. I mean, I love going to new places. They're beautiful. I love taking pictures. I love documenting them. I love learning about them. I love experiencing them. So certainly there is a draw to these sort of natural places, and that is part of it for sure. But I've come to believe that the wilderness and nature, or the backcountry, or whatever you want to call it, whatever word you want to stick to places that don't belong to us humans, they do something different for me. They are a place of reflection. And by that, I mean that they are very much, I believe, mirrors that can show you things that are inside of you that you are chewing on or thinking about or working through that you might not see otherwise. I really do believe that the wild shows you what you bring into it. I don't think that there's a, I don't believe in a great tree spirit out there that is watching over you, but they're special places, and they do have a way of reflecting back to you what you carry into them, and that can be very powerful. They're places of introspection. They're places of order, natural order, not necessarily the kind of order that you see in cities and human life, but a different and I think much more majestic and beautiful type of order. They're places of solitude. Sometimes they're places of sadness. Sometimes they're places of joy. Always they're places of freedom and feeling like you are where you are meant to be, like you are conquering something, achieving something, both externally and within yourself internally. And they're just really, it's a special thing that we do. And it goes into all these other disciplines. You know, there's hiking, there's backpacking, there's camping, there's mountaineering, there's navigation, there's survival. All of these things that you have to do to go out and be successful in the wilderness at all. But especially if you want to go be successful fly fishing in the backcountry and in the wilderness, those things they're pursuits in their own right. They're satisfying in their own right. They're certainly part of the game. But they really, to me, are just evidence that we want to go do hard stuff. And there's a reason that we want to go do hard stuff. And so this season, we're still going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, everything ranging from how to catch cutthroat to how to wet wade to fly patterns and everything else. So of course, we're still going to hit that, especially for this sort of primo summer true backcountry season that we have, which is depressingly short in a lot of places, especially where I am in Colorado. We really only get a few months. So we're certainly going to hit that. I want to arm you guys to go out there and be successful. But we're also going to talk a little bit more about this other stuff. The stuff in fly fishing, the je ne sais quoi, the psychological stuff that I just don't think gets talked about enough. There are instances of this being talked about. You know, a river runs through it, touches on it. Every now and then you'll find a blog or an essay that touches on it. But, you know, I sometimes hear people say fly fishing is just fishing, man. It's just fishing. And it's not just fishing, at least not to me. It's something else entirely. And I want to honor that, and I want to respect that, and I really appreciate those of you who have reached out and sort of flagged that need and flagged the desire to talk more about it. So we'll be weaving that in throughout the season. But I wanted to start this very first episode with a little bit of that, I guess. And that's why this episode's got a little bit of a weird title to it, right? I mean, usually we have like fly patterns for the spring, or how to hike on spring trails, or how to nymph a tailwater, whatever the titles might be. I don't even remember which episodes we've done at this point, so don't hold it against me. But this one is called something different. This one is called Ghosts, Growth, and Grace. And those three words, in addition to being a clever alliteration, thank you for noticing, I think really do a good job of summing up why I'm out there, at least. Not why I'm fly fishing. Again, that's a separate activity, but why I insist on doing it in these specific places, and why I insist on doing it usually alone. And I want to talk a little bit about that before we jump into the rest of this conversation about backcountry fly fishing for the summer and the season proper. And so let me just tell you a little bit about this. We'll run through each of these in turn. I'll do my best not to get too teary on you here, but you know, I've been through some stuff, and fly fishing is the activity that has seen me through some stuff. And I don't have a problem talking about it. I don't have an issue being vulnerable and talking about what the sport means to me. I understand that some might find that not to be their cup of tea, or to be unmanly, or whatever you want to throw on me. But that's fine. You know, I've spent enough time out there and done enough of this that I don't feel the need really to prove anything to anybody anymore. I have wrestled with a lot of stuff out there and otherwise. And to be honest with you, I think we do ourselves a disservice to not talk about it. So we're going to talk about it. So let's talk about that first G, ghosts. I had an Instagram post, I don't know, a while ago that got a fair amount of DMs from you all. Some of you were asking if I was okay. I am okay. Thanks for asking. But others were just kind of curious about it. And what I said was that I usually fish by myself, but I'm seldom alone because there are always ghosts with me on the river. And this isn't a new sentiment, right? If you've read or watched A River Runs Through It, it ends with, I am haunted by waters, right? The idea that there is something spiritual in these places that sticks with you and hangs with you. And I think that's true. And I think that, when you are off in the middle of the sticks by yourself on water that very few people have ever seen before, in places that few people have ever seen before, or even in a place that maybe is fairly well known, but just not very heavily trafficked, you are going to spend some time with ghosts. And those ghosts can be a lot of things. They can be memories. So, stuff that has happened in your past. These could be happy or sad memories. They could be people that you've lost. They could be failures of yours. So things that you did wrong. Maybe they're things you did wrong in your life or your business or your work or your marriage or with your kids or personally, whatever they might be. They could be this sort of nagging feeling that you have more to do, that you're not doing enough, maybe that you're slacking off, or there's something that you should be doing better. They could be a whole bunch of different things. And I think the things that they are vary by the time of your life that you happen to be in. So, my mom died of small cell lung cancer a year ago. And it was a brutal experience, both for her and for me. It's a terrible disease, that took her mind before it took her body. And, I grew up, if you guys listened to the early episode in season 1 about my fly fishing story, I grew up in a single parent household with no siblings. So I'm an only child. I grew up with my mom in a tiny apartment in the middle of Denver. Didn't have a lot of money. Didn't have a lot of stuff. Didn't have a lot of family. Still don't. And, but we had each other. And so watching her go through that and helping her walk through that and attempting to walk through that myself, with really no real help, or at least not from anybody who could really fully understand it, was a incredibly rough season for me. And it happened to come on the backside of a even rougher season, right? So, relational troubles and marital troubles and business risks and financial issues and the general angst of being a 30-something-year-old dude who is trying to figure out where you want to go and what you want to do and if you're doing enough. And fishing was the thing that I always came back to. No matter how bad things got. It started out as a hobby. It sort of developed from there into a need. And it became the place that I went to deal with these things. It was the only place that I could be alone, truly alone. I think it's very hard to think clearly in modern society sometimes, because even when you're by yourself, you're not really, right? You have lights and sounds and other people and expectations and calendars and emails and text messages and cell phones. And it can be very hard to focus. And if you're not willing to focus on the things that are eating you, it can be real hard to stop them. It can be hard to put them away. And yeah, you can go to therapy and there's a lot of other stuff you can and should do. I do those things too. Being out on the water, being by yourself, listening to the rhythm of the stream or the wind on the lake, listening to the trees rustling around you, and just being present in a wild place that is beautiful and orderly and exactly as it should be, and that absolutely does not care about you. It doesn't care if you live. It doesn't care if you die. It was there long before the first human set foot there. It will be there long after the last one sets foot there. These places are not about you, but they provide a sort of sensory deprivation experience where you can go out. And what I find is I go out there and I'll be quiet for a while. And maybe the first couple hours, there's not much going on. You're fishing, you're figuring out what's hatching, you're dialing in your gear. And then you start thinking, you start getting those voices in your head, right? And I don't mean like the literal, you're crazy schizophrenic voices. I mean, those little voices in your head that say, hey, that fight you had with your girlfriend or your wife or your friend or whatever, you might have been wrong about that. And you should go back and you should apologize. Or maybe you're thinking about your finances and you're thinking, man, I got to make a change. This isn't working for me. I'm not being responsible. I gotta deal with it. Maybe you're dealing with a death, or you're fishing through grief, which is what I did with my mom's death. And you are trying to come to grips with the fact that that person will never again be there when you come out of the canyon or when you come down off the mountain. Maybe you're trying to make a big decision about, your next career step or whether you should go back to school or whether or not you should get a divorce or get married or whatever. And I find that those ghosts, the stuff that goes with you out there, it's the only place I can really deal with them. It really is. I can't deal with them in Deckers. No offense, Deckers. I feel like I'm constantly beating up that place. I don't feel like I can deal with them on some big name river next to 20 other guys. I don't feel like I can deal with them in my office. I don't feel like I can necessarily deal with them really anywhere other than on the river, where you can be truly honest with yourself and where you are forced, by virtue of being on your own and self-reliant and in a place that doesn't care about you, to sit with yourself and everything that comes along with that. Good, bad, right, wrong, ugly. You're going to hear about it, especially if you spend time alone. And I think that that is why people are so terrified of true solitude and true isolation. Not because it's scary, not because something might happen to you or you might disappear, but because the truth is, that's where you hear the truth. And I will be honest with you guys, I have fished through the hardest stuff that life has ever thrown at me. I believe that if I did not fish, that I would not still be here. I will tell you those stories at some other point, but I've had some really rough and some pretty dark times. And had I not had fly fishing, and had I not had the connection with the backcountry and wild places that I do, I don't think I would have made it. Physically, emotionally, mentally, I think I would, at the best, be a very different person in a very different and probably very worse place. And at the worst, I might not be here. And so that's the first part of this. The first G is ghosts. Going out there, making peace with them, putting them to bed, burying the ones you can, at least learning how to live with the ones that you can't, and using the wilderness as a way to work your way through that stuff. The second piece is growth. Growth is something that I think a lot about. I do a lot of wilderness stuff, as you guys might have noticed. But I do a lot of other things too. So I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a combat sport that a lot of you are probably familiar with. I've been doing it for years. I'm a purple belt, and it involves a whole bunch of getting smashed, especially in the early years. It's a very, very difficult sport that focuses on live sparring called rolling and live grappling. And it's hard. It's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to be good at. It's a hard thing to suck at. And it's an ego trip. It's a hard thing to do. I lift weights in part because it helps me get ready for the things that I love, like jujitsu, like hiking, like carrying heavy stuff around in the woods. But also because it is a place where you can seek growth and mastery and meditation and self-improvement. And then, of course, we've got this whole backcountry fly fishing thing, which is in a lot of ways about mastery over these kind of final frontiers, yes, but it's more about mastery over yourself in a whole bunch of different ways, right? So to go out and to be successful in these places, you have got to be able to trust yourself, rely on yourself. You've got to be comfortable being alone. You have to be comfortable being in situations that are hard. You have to be comfortable with harsh environments. You have to be comfortable with harsh weather. And you have to be good at a whole bunch of stuff, or at least proficient at a whole bunch of stuff, right? You need to be in pretty decent physical condition because you're going to be hiking long distances, probably with a fairly decent load on you. You're going to need to know at least some basics about survival, right? So if you get stuck out somewhere, what do you do? How do you call for help? How do you filter water? Can you build a fire? Do you know how to build a simple A-frame shelter or use an emergency blanket or any of those things? You probably eventually are going to need to know how to camp, right? I mean, camping's not my favorite thing in the whole world. I'll be honest with you. It's lugging a bunch of really heavy shit into the middle of nowhere. But it's part of it, right? And if you want to get to these really far off places, you're going to be camping sometimes. You've got to know how to fish, obviously. If you get out there and you don't know how to cast a fly and you don't know which flies to use and you don't know how to catch a fish, well, then your backcountry fly fishing trip's probably going to be kind of shitty, right? So you got to know how to do that. And then you got to know all these other things about navigation and weather patterns and water patterns and temperatures and safety and everything else. And all of those things, the reason I think that we like this stuff so much, the reason that people get so sucked into the outdoor life and the idea of being outdoors people is because all of these things are really just different pursuits of mastery, right? And that's what we're doing here. We want to master fly fishing. We want to master being out in the wilderness. We want to master being self-reliant. We want to know that we can walk off into a wild place tens of miles into the middle of nowhere, probably by ourselves, maybe with a small group of friends, however you like to do it, and that we can succeed in those places, we can thrive in those places, and then we can come back safely and better than we were when we went out. And that's really where the growth comes from, right? Because the confidence that you get from that, the grit that you get from that, the mental toughness that you get from that, and just the general development that you get from that is incredible. I mean, you are a better person for spending time in the wilderness, especially spending time in a way that is designed to build proficiency and mastery and growth. You're a better person, and that stuff translates into the rest of your life. It translates into your emotional state. It translates into your mental state. It translates into your work and your business and your relationships. That stuff matters, right? And backcountry fly fishing to me is kind of the pinnacle of doing hard stuff because it makes you better and because you are chasing that star of being the best that you can be, which I think might have been an Army slogan. So you can you can take that one or leave it, but you catch my drift, right? We were out there in large part because of growth. And then we have the final G, right? The final G is grace. And this is kind of the gentler thing. So this is the piece that I think A River Runs Through It kind of tries to convey. And it does to some extent. But this is sort of after you've dealt with the ghosts and wrestled with them, after you've achieved the right level of growth to be able to go out and be successful in these places, then you get to enjoy this incredible sense of peace. And there really is nothing more peaceful in the world than nature and the wild doing what it does, right? It does it whether you're there or not. But the idea that you get to be there and see it and witness it and be part of it and understand a small piece of it, and because you're fly fishing, interact with the ecosystem and interact with this thing that's bigger than you, that's older than you, that is an incredible thing. And if you can get there, you will find a lot of peace in this, right? So this is why they take combat vets with PTSD fly fishing. This is why they use it as a form of therapy, which is something that I'd like to talk more about. But this is where you can find, you're gonna deal with the other stuff too. So I don't want to make it sound like it's all sunshine and rainbows. But you can find some incredible, profound, true peace in the wild and on the water that I just don't think you can find anywhere else. I don't think you're going to find it at a busy pull-off with trucks driving down the road every 5 seconds. You're definitely not going to find it walking around the city streets. You just aren't going to find it anywhere else except in these pure, pristine places that are as close to untrammeled and untouched by people as we can possibly manage on this crazy space rock these days. And these are sort of the payoff, the reward, right? The ability to appreciate that quiet rhythm and just sort of to draw the peace and the grounding and the centeredness, for lack of a better term. You'll have to forgive me for being kind of woo-woo there, but hey, here we are. That is sort of the final frontier of fly fishing. And I think the final G and the final reason that we do these things, because you got to get off the beaten trail if you ever want to find this kind of grace. So those are my 3 G's. Those are the big reasons that I go fly fishing. So, and I find that I run across these all at different times of my life and in different seasons, sometimes very close to each other, right? So I went fishing on my mom's death anniversary to help me kind of work through that and leave it alone. And I made a pretty serious breakthrough, to be honest, in the canyon that day. It was the first time that I was able to go out and be someplace and do something where I was able to let some of that shit go and just get back to a place of joy and enjoyment. I went to a remote canyon the week after that because it was difficult to get into. It was hard to access. Very few people go there. It was full of rattlesnakes. I had to call it off 3 times because of weather and crazy flow shifts and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I wanted to go see that place. I wanted to get in there. I wanted to access it and I wanted to experience it. And I did. I got in there. I slept out there. spent the night alone out in this godforsaken canyon, 30 miles from the nearest person, caught a bunch of fish, enjoyed it for what it was, and had a great time, and came back, I believe, better than I was when I went out. And then, this week, I'm out there just fishing for peace. I'm not going anywhere super far this week. I've got El Nino is screwing me, so, shake fist and double middle fingers at all this ridiculous wet weather that we're having. And also we've got runoff going on still and a few other things. And so it's tough out there, but that's all just part of the pattern. It's part of the rhythm. And so tomorrow I'll be hopping on a mountain bike and riding up another canyon to enjoy as much solitude and peace as I can find. Not because I'm fighting with ghosts, not really because I'm looking to, blow myself up with some kind of self-development program, at least tomorrow, but just because it's been kind of a long week and I want to go find some peace. And so I'm going to go do that. And that's all stuff that's happened just in the last 3 weeks, right? So what we get out of the sport changes week to week. It changes based on the chapter of your life you're in. And one of the things that I think is cool is that the water, the river, or the lake, wherever you happen to be, it might not always give you what you want, guys, but it almost always will give you what you need if you're willing to go and if you're willing to listen and be honest with yourself. So there you have it. There is my intro to season 4. I think that you will find that some of this philosophy will color a lot of what we talk about this season. But as I mentioned, there's going to be a lot that we are going to talk about that doesn't have anything to do with this stuff. So, we're going to talk about, in addition to the things I mentioned earlier, we'll talk a little bit about hiking. We'll talk about some more stuff related to high alpine lakes. We'll talk about how to stay safe in the sun. We'll talk about how to trust your intuition and your gut to keep yourself out of bad situations with a really interesting interview. We'll talk about why spot burning sucks. And so, bad news, but for those of you who did not enjoy the first round of Complaint Corner about high holing, I'm going to do it again. And this one's going to be about spot burning. And I think I hate spot burning even more than I hate high holing. So I don't know, buckle up or skip that one, but we're going to talk about it. And then we're going to do a whole bunch of other stuff too. But we're going to do it with the recognition and the respect that I think this activity deserves for what it is. Because what it is not just fishing. It's something different and it's something more. And I think that is something that all of you probably recognize, even if you don't like to talk about it, and even if you don't exactly know how to articulate it. So thank you guys. Welcome back. I am excited to get rolling. The next episode will be up next week. Just as a reminder, we will post every Friday at 2 p.m. Mountain, barring some kind of catastrophe or me getting stuck in the woods somewhere, which could happen. So, I will do my level best to have an episode out at that time every single week. We will have a full 12-episode season, and then we will wrap up and go into season 5. But you've got listening to me and some other interesting people to look forward to for at least the next 3 months, right? That'll get you all the way through this sort of serious backcountry window where you can be out hitting high alpine lakes and far off creeks and high elevation stuff before we start tipping back into fall and sort of, watching the world collapse back to some of those lower elevation places. So I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to be out there. I'm excited to be back talking to you guys, and I am looking forward to it. So thanks for hanging with me. Appreciate you guys. If you have not yet had a chance to leave a review for the show, I would love it if you would. 5 stars is beautiful. If you want to leave less than 5 stars, that kind of sucks, but at least tell me what you don't like so I can work on it. But Apple, Spotify, anywhere you listen, that would be beautiful. And as always, if you would like to get a hold of me, you can find me on the Backcountry Fly Fishing Podcast Instagram, on our Facebook page, or at backcountryflyfishingpodcast@gmail.com. Love hearing from you guys. I read them all. I'm always happy to talk. So give me a shout if you want to talk. Otherwise, have fun. Stay safe out there. Catch a bunch of fish. I'll see you back here next week. Till next time, this is Ross. Maybe I'll see you out there. Unless I'm too busy smoking a pipe in my tweed jacket.